going to put the spotlight on one of the exciting recent listings on the Neo Exchange, Mydecine, and I'm very happy and proud to be able to welcome Josh Bartch, their CEO, who is here with us. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you, Josh. Happy to be with you.
To get things started, Josh, what I think is always a very good thing on these spotlight events is to give our audience, which is representing people who know you, people who don't know you that well, is to start with an overview of the organization. So could you tell us a little bit more about, high level, what is Mydecine about? What is your business proposal?
Sure. So Mydecine Innovations Group is a company really focused on bringing first and second generation novel therapeutics focused around the psychedelic medicine industry to market. And we really do that by, bringing to light the significant infrastructure that we've been able to put together with really kind of three pillars. And one of those is our drug discovery unit, which is headed by our Chief Science Officer, Rob Roscoe, as well as our drug discovery expert, which is Dr. Denton Hoyer, who spent about 3 decades in pharma designing unique small molecules for Pfizer, Novartis, and most recently ran the small molecule division at Yale Medical Center. In conjunction with an exclusive partnership that we have with Applied Pharmaceutical Innovation, which is hosted out of the University of Alberta. So for context, University of Alberta is top 15 in the world for drug discovery and top 3 in the world for artificial intelligence. So really what we're doing is combining both of those verticals as well as capturing all of the capabilities that they have on site at the University of Alberta to be able to fast forward and really have an A to Z capability as it pertains to drug discovery. Additionally, we've been able to build out a global clinical infrastructure with sites including 3 in Canada, University of Alberta, Royal Ottawa, and Western Ontario, Leiden University in the EU, as well as 3 very, very prolific veterans-focused sites that we're adding in the United States that we'll be announcing here soon. And really what that gives us the ability to do is once we're through preclinical and concept phase of our drugs, we can quickly facilitate those into human clinical trials globally. And last is our technology and telehealth platform, MindLeap. And really what MindLeap Health is set out to do, it's important to look at psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy kind of as a whole, as a protocol standpoint, and understand that 7 or 8 tenths of that equation is one-on-one interactions with psychotherapists and individual patient with no substances taken at all. So from a scalability standpoint, there's really no reason why those interactions need to take place like they have historically in person. So we have created a very niche platform with a very advanced, robust back-end analytical system that allows those non-substance treatments to take place over a digital platform, a telehealth platform.
Well, I think you're presenting a very holistic solution, and your core pillars are clearly part of a one integrated offering. So that takes me automatically to the next question. We know of a number of other players in this space. If you would compare yourself to, let's compare to the main players over there. There's also a lot of noise in the system, as we all know. But if you compare yourself to the main players, what would you say are the elements of differentiation? What makes you unique? What makes you different? What should the investor know about that?
Sure. I think 2 things to really highlight that makes Mydecine unique is our infrastructure and capabilities, as well as our human capital and kind of our approach around both. So starting with human capital and really looking at, again, our drug development and our ability to design really unique novel molecules that solve a lot of the issues with some of the well-known single molecules, let's say a COMP360 or a psilocybin product that carry very long half-lives, have some risks associated with them, things like anxiety, the quote unquote bad trip, et cetera. It really makes it difficult to scale that and treat a large amount of patients. globally. So, we've taken the approach and really brought in a team of experts, starting with, again, Dr. Denton Hoyer, and in conjunction with the University of Alberta and their Faculty of Pharmacology, to be able to look at the molecules and look at the treatments and develop, kind of generation 2 of how do you create more safety rails, better dosability, and really be able to control the time course. And make those treatments much more scalable and much more compatible with therapy as a whole. So through that, we've been able to develop our kind of 4 lead drugs, which we'll touch on in a little bit. Additionally, when you look at kind of our human capital, in the clinical side of things, and really one of our indications that we're focused on, which is PTSD, specifically in the veterans, our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Rakesh Jetley, just retired after 31 years in the Canadian Armed Forces. Upon retirement in February, he was the chief of psychiatry for the Canadian Armed Forces and has also chaired a number of NATO boards globally. So his fellow constituency have over 1,000 years, who's our scientific advisory board, over 1,000 years of experience treating PTSD, both in active duty and as well as veteran populations. It's the who's who of PTSD, and it really gives us, an ability to capitalize on kind of our goal of coming up with better solutions to treat PTSD. For those of you that don't know, currently there's not a single pharmaceutical drug that's actually manufactured for PTSD. So everything's borrowed off label. So there's a huge white space and a huge need for that treatment. And then additionally, somebody that we're really excited about from a human capital standpoint is William Cook. So William Cook is a new CEO of MindLeap. William Cook is a West Point grad. He also was one of the main architects on the Patriot missile system in the United States. He's a systems architect, an amazing system architect. We brought him in to kind of develop MindLeap 2.0, which we'll be launching here in the spring. But what he's done is brought an incredible wealth of expertise, experience, and programming, et cetera, to bring a really advanced solution to the telehealth medicine platform as it revolves and pertains to psychedelic medicine. So additionally is our infrastructure and what we've been able to build. So again, when you look at kind of our global clinical test sites, this is the who's who of university partnerships that are really looking at psychedelics. Additionally, we have a partnership with Imperial College of London, which we announced. We're doing some microdose studies there, and Macquarie University, University of Maryland, with Dr. Jalen Waddell. So we really have a great university partnership infrastructure. And then additionally, when you look at our capabilities at the University of Alberta has a multi-$100 million pharmaceutical drug development lab. Again, they're top 15 in the world for drug discovery. Additionally, we have a full CGMP pharmaceutical manufacturing lab on site. So we can actually go from A to Z, from the synthesis of multiple molecules concurrently, all the way through the research and development phase, and then into full production in a CGMP pharmaceutical manufacturing, all encompassed and covered by a very robust Schedule I Health Canada dealer's license that gives us ability to then export those drugs out to our various clinical test sites globally. So, it's a very unique and all-encompassing in-house capabilities that we're really excited about and proud of.
Yeah, no, very, very impressive team indeed, as you said. Now, one of the elements that is always very important, and you and I talked about that in the past. You're a public company, so I think you have incredible assets with respect to your core business, your research testing capability. I think you touched also upon technological capabilities, but it was also very important, once you're a public company, that is to have the structure in place to accompany that. Could you say a few words about your team over there? Because that, I think, is also something that investors are always interested in, like making sure that the company that is listed has the structure, has the governance, has the advisors that allow them to be successful as a public company.
Sure. So, collectively between, Gordon Neal, one of our independent board members, Josephine Wu, collectively they've raised over $9 billion in capital for different companies ranging in industries. Additionally, has served in several executive roles for decades on, very high level, multi-billion-dollar market cap public companies. So, we have great advisors as well around the capital markets. From a corporate governance standpoint, we have the governance box at uplisting.com, who's been amazing. That's Todd Heinzel. He's been able to come in and make sure that our corporate governance is really buttoned up as we kind of move to senior exchanges, starting with the NEO. It was an incredible experience and obviously very seamless. So thank you to the NEO team for that. But all in all, from start to finish on the capital market side of things, we have pretty much every aspect covered with very, very strong industry veterans.
No, and I think it's an important point to stress, and I think it's something that investors really need to understand. And the journey you've been going through, what you have done to uplist to NEO, and making sure you really button down the governance, you have the right people around you. I think that's very critical, and that is something that investors should always look at, because that is a token of seriousness, a token of focus. That you see, and that will make a difference between the good companies and the companies where you may face some issues and concerns in the future. Josh, the next point I would like to get into is your press release that you issued on April 7, where you already referred to it, where you announced 4 lead drug candidates. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? And could I also ask you to leverage that to answer a question that has been put forward by the audience? The difference between synthetic psilocybin and that you are now putting through phase 2 trials and the naturally sourced one. I think it's an interesting question to address and understand.
Sure. So we'll start with that, and that's MYCO 001. And really what that is a single molecule of purified psilocybin from a natural source. And it goes through a proprietary purification process, which we developed in-house at the University of Alberta, that brings it down to a 99.9% pure product, which is analogous to the synthetic Comps 360 or the Usona product. What it does is, one, from a scalability standpoint, it's very efficient to produce and very inexpensive to produce. Additionally, given that there is some patent claims floating out there around the synthetic molecule, we have full freedom to operate under that molecule. So there's no question of if we're infringing on that patent. So for us, we see it as a great kind of first generation alternative to what's currently available. And we're not beholden to the big boys like Compass, whereas we can actually produce that in-house at a fraction of the price that they're currently charging and or producing it for at an infinite scale. So whether that's for our own clinical trials, to be able to support other clinical trials, which we'll be talking about soon, some of the later stage clinicals that we've been supporting, as well as, all the way through to commercialization. Once it rolls out on a commercial scale, we have the ability in-house to supply at any scale that analogous product. So something that we're very, very exciting about. So, we believe that sometime in Q3, Q4, we'll actually be able to have that IND number on that product. But currently, it's fully available for research for our own internal purposes, as well as collaborators that are interested in looking at using that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it definitely answers the question, and I think it's very powerful what you're saying about scalability, because that is going to be a very critical component for anyone in this space, and being in that spot, I think is definitely a spot of strength. Let's come back to the announcement, the press release, and the 4 lead drug candidates that you covered over there. Could you tell us a bit more about those and how you see them playing a key role going forward?
Sure. So I'm going to step back a little bit kind of at our strategy. Again, what we've developed is really 7 classes of novel molecules that we can pick and choose from. Each have kind of unique characteristics that really solve the problem, again, of scalability, controllability, dosability, and adds additional safety rails and delivery mechanisms as well to it, that we have a patent portfolio around that adds layers of protection on each one of these different drugs. Through those 7 classes, we've developed and identified about 33 unique molecules that we think hold unique, very strong merit and potential, and then refine that down to our 4 lead candidates. So MYCO 002 essentially is a reduced harm version of the MDMA treatment. So we've been able to do something with the molecule that kind of takes that FDA concerns that you've seen published in the traditional MDMA treatments of the cardiovascular risk issues, increased heart rate, et cetera, and still, supplies this therapeutic benefit, but we think that it's a much safer product, and really something that the FDA wanted to see is now solved. So something that we're very excited about. 003 is a psilocybin derivative compound that we've been able to tailor and add additional safety rails. But really the goal of that and what we've been able to accomplish is that it reduces the kind of quote unquote bad, anxiety or quote unquote bad trip that's associated with psilocybin in many instances. And then 004 is something that we're incredibly excited about. And it's something that has 3 layers of patent protection that's unique to Mydecine. So 004 is a molecule, it's a psilocin derivative molecule. And for those of you that don't know, psilocin as a molecule, so your body metabolizes psilocybin. Psilocybin is not psychoactive. When it's metabolized through your liver, it then is converted into psilocin, which is psychoactive. The reason why psilocin is not used in many drugs is because it's not stable on its own. So we've created and patented the process of actually stabilizing the psilocin and psilocin-like compounds, which is obviously very, very beneficial because it rapidly increases the psychoactivity of the actual compound. So through that process, what we've been able to do is develop 004, which is also delivered on a patch system. So for those of you that also don't know, psilocybin and psilocin is not skin permeable as it stands. So we've been able to create a novel molecule that carries the same characteristic traits, but is actually skin permeable, and then apply that to a patch, which we also have patent protection around as well. So what we have now is a much shorter acting psilocin derivative that carries about 1.5 to 2 hour half-life that's actually delivered on a patch system, which is 100% proprietary to Mydecine. So something that we feel is incredibly scalable, is really, really a unique delivery system that you haven't seen out in the marketplace, and is fully covered under us. It really carries infinite possibilities. So very, very excited about MYCO 004.
So if I take a step back and I listen at everything that you put forward, and then there's some fascinating elements that you bring forward. Your current strategy is all about scalability, microdosing, safety, with new products that you're looking at, and you are sitting on a strong IP portfolio to protect all the innovation that you are coming with. Could you tell us a little bit more about that IP portfolio? How should I look at that? How meaningful is that IP portfolio for an organization like you? How will you be able to leverage that? Protect it is probably the right way to say it, and how will investors benefit from that?
Sure. So I think IP is something that's very important to any company that operates in specifically the biopharma industries. For sure, you have to protect your inventions. And what you're seeing a lot in kind of this space is very unique because psilocybin and many other compounds that are of interest are a product of nature and not patentable. And there's a big kind of argument as to what is patentable and what is not. What we've been able to do is patent delivery mechanisms as it pertains to our novel molecules, specifically our designs. But it's really, we've been able to patent the designs, for instance, making psilocin and psilocybin stable and also skin permeable. That's never been done before. That's fully patentable. And it's also very, very unique and very, very beneficial in the long run, because those are for all psilocybin and psilocin like tryptamines, like compounds, et cetera, across the map. So it really encompasses thousands of different designs that we then own the IP around. So something that's very, very, we see a lot of value in. Additionally, what you want to look at is kind of, the common space in the literature, and you have to really take a deep dive, because I think what you're going to see kind of in the long run is a lot of people and companies is kind of a land grab, and companies filing patents just for the sake of filing to say that we have IP. Each and every one of our patent filings is specifically around one of our inventions that we see that we're going to put to use. We don't care patent portfolio just to have patent portfolios. We identify what is our use, what is our goals, what is our targets, how we're going to accomplish that, and then we want to patent protect that specific aspect of our business.
Well, thanks for that, and I think it's an important element to stress, because you raise it yourself. There's always questions around, what is really patentable in this space because it is a natural product. But I think you zooming in on elements where clearly patents are not only meaningful but are patents that you truly can apply and protect, and I think that's going to be very critical for any organization. Well, any organization, if we want in this space, whether it's academics related or pharma in general, it is a critical component. Quick move back to the earlier question. Clarification was asked about MYCO 1. The clarification was: are you looking only for regulatory approval of the synthetic version, or are you looking at naturally sourced approval also?
So the answer to your question is both. We have an investigative brochure that's already written on our naturally derived psilocybin. We're finishing up our final preclinicals, and we'll be moving into that pre-IND. Additionally, I think something that is of interest definitely to the Mydecine team, and something that through our CSO and COO we have significant expertise in, and that's really understanding kind of the entourage effect that's associated with some of these natural source mushrooms. So what we're finding, and you saw just our most recent press release about the high throughput compound screening that we have, which is an AI technology that we have access to out of the University of Alberta. But what we're finding and what we've already been able to accomplish is we've classified over 20 psychoactive compounds found in fungal sources, not been classified previously. So now we're running those through our different screening processes to find out exactly, what are the capabilities. And I think there's a very unique chance and a very good chance that maybe we find a compound that's, superior to a psilocybin that's never been actually identified, classified, and taken through preclinicals before in histories. What we do know is if you look at ancient shamanistic practices, etc., when they use psilocybin mushrooms for a variety of different things, they have specific mushrooms that they use for specific different, practices, etc., and all do very different things. What that's telling you is that there's much more going on than just psilocybin or psilocin within the mushrooms, that there's an interaction between different tryptamines, different compounds, etc., that has, different outcomes. So we're really diving those down and singularizing those in an individual molecule standpoint, understanding the individual molecule, which will let us better understand really what those do, synergistically or individually.
Yeah, no, that's that is exciting because it means still a hell of a lot ahead of you, and that takes me a bit to the next question. So I think you gave a good overview of what you're doing. You give a good overview of what your current strategy is. How do you look at Mydecine in the future? Let's move a few years forward. Like, what is your high level strategy there, and how do you see things evolving?
Sure. So, we take a phased approach to kind of our path to commercialization. And when I say that, you see that we have our lead single molecule psilocybin, which I think there's enough literature that we know that we will be successful in that endeavor. And it's a much more easily paved way to the FDA. We also have a late stage addiction clinical that we'll be talking about here soon, that we will be pushing through to FDA approval very in a relatively near term. We're not talking about a 5-year approval process. We're much closer than that. During that time, after we have our first 2 indication and first generation treatments approved, is when we'll be introducing our second generation of our novel molecules, which we talked about on this, which are improved formats of treatment. So the idea is to bring kind of the first generation, which is vastly better than what's currently available, but still has a lot of imperfections, to market as quickly and as efficiently as possible, kind of roll out that global global application site of where you're going to administer the treatments, et cetera, build that global network. And then during that time, introduce your more novel, second generation improved, and then continue to iterate and continue to improve upon those substances. We have a long ways to go. This research is still very much in its infancy, but what we do know is that it holds a potential to completely displace a ton of mental health treatments and pharmaceutical treatments that are incredibly expensive and incredibly dangerous and ineffective.
Yeah. So if I'm now, I'm listening to you. I hear what you're doing. I see how you are innovating. I see how you have a clear plan, a clear strategy, a clear vision, and how you want to move forward. if I'm an investor, what would you tell me? Because I'm looking at the opportunity, and the big question that I always ask myself, the same on a personal basis, is should I invest now? Should I wait a little bit? Should I maybe have invested earlier? What is your view on that, and what is your message to the investor about the opportunity and the opportunity today?
Sure. So I think if you look at from a sheer market cap perspective, I don't see another better buy that's close to Mydecine with the assets that we have. I think that we're by far the most undervalued, maybe the best untold story, if that's the way to phrase it. And now that we're really starting to talk about kind of some of our IP, some of our drug development, et cetera, publicly, I think you're going to see a really strong reception in the marketplace and see some pretty strong movement as we progress and talk about more of our discoveries. What we wanted to do, and if you're a real drug discovery company, you need to put some of your patents to use. You need to test some of these things out in the clinic and make sure that what you have is valuable before you talk about it and expose it to the world. So we've been relatively quiet on a lot of our IP that we're now starting to publicly talk about. And as we grow as a company and are able to, from an IP protection standpoint, talk more about our inventions and some of the data, and we start to publish, et cetera, coming out here soon, I think you're going to see some really, really strong movement. Again, if you look at our capabilities, look at our team, and look at our ability to execute and past successes that our team has had, we're really, really in the top tier of this industry for sure.
And I think you're approaching it the right way, Josh. I think you built your foundation, you put in place the right structure, you create confidence with investors, and now it's about communication and getting, as you said, the word out and make people understand. What makes you unique. We discussed it today. What are your assets? What are your strengths? And it's communication, and it's explaining what makes you different from everyone else. Quick question that came in from the audience. You recently announced a spin-off of cannabis-related business and assets. How do you see that impacting? I think the question is very specific. The shareholders.
Sure. So I think it's a great thing for shareholders. So the cannabis assets that are currently in Mydecine are good assets, but of course are not the main focus of Mydecine and the Mydecine team. But if those were put into a vehicle, which the spinout will accomplish, which also gives a dividend to the shareholders, they will also own shares, obviously 1-for-1 or whatever the ratio is in the new vehicle. It'll let those assets thrive, as well as be able to add additional assets and grow that cannabis business and give it the attention that it needs. So it adds diversity. It also lets those assets really get the focus that they need to, which will ultimately in the long run benefit the Mydecine shareholders.
Yep. No, I think that's a very clear and I would almost say straightforward answer. I think we're getting close to the end of our session, Josh, and I think we covered a lot of territory. So thank you very much for that, and thank you for the openness and the transparency and the clarity in your messaging. Last one that I always like to put forward is why did you decide to uplist to NEO?
I think, again, the NEO, first of all, the team at the NEO, including yourself, Jos, Eric Sloan, and several others, have been incredible. The NEO is a forward-looking, forward-thinking tier one marketplace that allows us to really thrive, allows us to look, act, and feel, and also receive the benefits of a tier one exchange. Which we think that we need to, that's imperative to our growth. It allows us access to better liquidity long-term, much, higher ilk and tier one banking and capital, which is obviously important when you're in a capital intensive marketplace like we are. So, along our journey and kind of the growth of our company, we saw the NEO as just kind of an inherent growth portion of that as well.
Yeah, it is critical because a lot of investors and people don't realize, and I'm not doing a pitch here for NEO, but I'm going to do a pitch for tier one exchanges. It should be very clear to everyone that institutional investors, which are critical to you to allow you to raise capital, to raise more capital, institutional investors that are going to give you more stability in your stock because you're going to have less, speculative trading taking place. Those only look at the tier one exchanges, and I think that a lot of corporates and investors should always think about that and keep that in the back of their mind. Which allows me to end with the last question from the audience, and we'll quickly take that one. Any plans on dual listings or progress on that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So actually tri-listing. So the LSE, we made significant progress. Obviously, on that LSE listing, as well as our NASDAQ listing, which we made significant progress to as well, caveat to both of those industries is that we spun out the cannabis assets. So that was a prerequisite to be able to actually list on both the LSE as well as the NASDAQ. It was an imperative step. Once those are actually out of the vehicle, I think you're going to see a relatively quick movement to both of those exchanges.
Josh, thank you very much once again. This was a great spotlight, and I hope that everyone in the audience got the answers that they were looking for, or the information that they were looking for. And I would also like to leave them with the thought that it should be and feel very free about reaching out with more questions. We'll make sure to pass them to Josh and his team, and get you all the information, all the data, and all the answers that you require. Josh, thank you very much. To all those in the audience, thank you very much for joining us. And the only last comment I can make, Josh, is looking forward to the next phase of a journey. I think it's a very exciting one, and you guys are in an incredible spot. So be well. Take care, everyone.